Welcome to the Manufacturing Masters Podcast with your host, Allison DeFord.
I don't know about you, but I always thought getting lean in manufacturing was about knowing the answers to implement waste reduction, flow, and so on. And after talking to today's guest, I found out it's actually something very different and exciting. It's really about asking the right questions, and why is at the top of the list. I am so excited to share this episode with you as I dive into lean and mean with our resident expert, Chad Metcalf. He is the founder and president of Value Stream Solutions. And gosh, he teaches us the lean fundamentals, which there are 4, and 3 primary tools to get started. And we get into, can you do this on your own? Or do you need to hire someone to help you? How long does it take? And what are some of the struggles that other manufacturers run into typically that maybe you can avoid? Because we'd all like to avoid the struggles, would we not? This process is so helpful because most of us really do want to get our business into a better flow. And Chad says that the majority of manufacturers he talks to today are really looking to build a culture of problem solving. So let's get into that. Let's find out what that means. Let's find out how to do it. And I just want to tell you, thank you for spending some time today, investing some time in yourself and your business. That's what we're here for, to support you every step of the way. Everybody, here we grow. So Chad, Value Stream Chad. I love making up names for people. We're so
I've been
happy
called
that
worse.
right? We're so excited that you're here, and we're going to talk about we're going to get down mean and lean here, and we're going to dispel some myths about lean, and I love your insights about it. I think people are going to be really they're going to want to take some notes, and they're going to learn a lot. So thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. And I hope anybody who's listening while driving isn't taking notes, but maybe save the episode and check it out after driving. I know I listen to podcasts all the time while driving, so it's my favorite spot to listen.
I do as well. Well, exactly. There will be notes that they're going to want to take, whether they're listening or watching this. But I want to jump in, and you know, for everybody listening and watching, we've all heard lean. It's been around for a long time. We talk about it all the time. I love the way you break it down, and you say you have a lot of clients coming to you, and they're focused on building a culture of problem solving. I think this is so smart and intriguing. Could you share a little bit about that? Why do they want to do this?
Sure. Well, there's a couple things going on in our manufacturing clients, which are small to medium size enterprises primarily. Some are owner operators, while others are small divisions of multinationals. But regardless of where they came from, what we're seeing in the last 4 or 5 years is a huge uptake in interest in developing problem-solving skills among all employees, all levels, from senior management down to hourly employees. And we like this because our whole philosophy of lean thinking really stems around applying plan, do, check, act problem solving to everything in the organization. So this idea of building a problem solving culture really is about bringing the scientific thinking into the workplace, rather than just show up for a job. Do your tasks, go home and get paid once every week or once every 2 weeks. It really is about more and more manufacturers are realizing, there's just so much going on from a challenges and issues point of view. Certainly since COVID, which is sort of the time frame I'm talking about. So, prior to COVID, we always had clients interested in problem solving. We tried to integrate it in most things we did. But lately, a lot of the requests have been coming direct from clients since COVID, with all the challenges that gave our manufacturers to trying to find good people, to trying to solve supply chain issues, to trying to improve their business. And apart from those three things, there's really not much else to do in manufacturing. Tongue in cheek,
Right.
but if there's a good foundation of asking questions, why is this happening? What's happening over here? What's causing this issue? And getting everyone in the organization somewhat involved in that as either a participant to be able to participate in other leaders' teams that want to solve issues, or themselves become problem solvers. It's a critical skill. And in the notes I sent you ahead of time, we look at it as kind of bedrock. There's foundational pieces to lean, but those foundational pieces are only as strong as the ground you're building it on. And to me, problem solving, that scientific method, the thinking process, is really the bedrock to build all the tools and foundational pieces of lean onto. So I'm personally glad that our clients are asking for it, requesting it. If they don't, we always steer them in that direction as well, to incorporate as much problem-solving training as we can into our process around implementing lean in their factories.
And this may be a dumb question, but does this involve asking why? Like, I feel like I've been talking about this a lot recently with colleagues and manufacturers, so that's why I bring it up. Is that idea of you plan it and you do it, but I love the check part. You call it PDCA, and forgive me, is that a common acronym in Lean, or is that something that just you guys use?
No, PDCA is common long before I was born. So anyone familiar with W. Edwards Deming from back in the 1930s and the quality movement in manufacturing and industry, and any historians would say Walter Schubert was working on it before Deming. But PDCA is sort of that foundational view of problem solving that all problem solving methods since then actually started from. So whether you subscribe in automotive, Ford developed the 8D problem solving methodology. Its roots are in PDCA. Six Sigma, believe it or not, is rooted in PDCA. The Toyota production system, which is the sort of the beginnings of lean, rooted in PDCA. So it is a common acronym. And you're right on the plan, do. Those are the exciting parts of problem solving, and most people, that's the easy part to get people's heads around. Because most people, when they're faced with a problem or challenge, they say, hey, let's go fix this. But they really don't, they're not doing a lot of the planning. They're just wanting to get into the doing really quickly.
Right.
They often sit in a boardroom brainstorming ideas on what ideas they could throw at the wall and see what sticks.
That's where I feel like that why comes in to play.
Right. And so the why is such an important question. Even one of the tools within PDCA problem solving is asking why 5 times, the 5 why process. So why is an absolutely critical question to ask at the beginning. Why is this happening? And another good question is, why doesn't it happen? So there are times when there is intermittent problems. So there's an intermittent problem with a machine or process or product, and we say, well, why is the bad thing happening? Another good question is, why doesn't it happen? Maybe it only happens 30% of the time. What's happening 70% of the time that may be causing it to be successful and not be problematic? So you're absolutely right, Allison. Asking why is one of the most important questions. And I like to joke when I do problem solving training and I allow employees permission to become a 3-year-old all over again.
I love that.
And just, ask why. Even if you think you know the answer, just pose the question out there, because you think you have the answer to the why, but there may be 8 or 10 or 20 people who work around you who are also pondering their own why and may have their own answer that's different than yours. And then we can ask, why do we have different answers? Will they all work? Are they all the same? Is my reason that this is a problem different from your reason that this is a problem? Very important to understand the problem before we get to the solving part. In fact, in PDCA, most people, even we use a graphic with a wheel, a circle, divided into 4 quadrants and put a PDCA in those quadrants. But it really is misleading, because it assumes or it sort of implies that each phase is about 25% of your effort. And the reality is the plan phase is about 50% of the whole problem-solving process. It is where you're digging into the underlying issues. You are looking at the data. You're trying to figure out the root cause or root causes. And then, once you have a connection to a root cause or root causes, then you can get to the do phase, which is the solving for the root cause. And once the root cause is solved for, reduced significantly or eliminated, then you rarely have to think about it ever again. And that is the holy grail most people are looking for. Although, companies they're not good at that, which is why they need help.
Right. And why do you think most companies struggle with implementing lean? Like, we're going to break down the 4 fundamentals of lean and the 3 primary tools of getting started. But I think I'm curious, and I think people listening would like to know as well. What are some of the things that manufacturers struggle with in implementing this in the first place?
Well, yeah, there's literally thousands of things.
Do we have a top 3?
Yeah. Let's just, sort of boil it down to things that we see. And that's how I want to respond to this is not so much, that this is a universal truth, but that this is what we see with our manufacturers and some common things that get in the way. Most people would agree with this, I think, even if they hadn't thought about it much. As they listen to this, they may be thinking about it. So one of the big things that we see that is one of the biggest roadblocks of all is that there is a leader or leadership team that aren't clear on why they want to embrace this, whether it be problem solving or lean thinking in their culture. They may have heard from a colleague, they may have heard from an employee, hey, we should do this, especially if that employee is just relatively new, was just hired. In fact, I was with a company last week, and they've got a new process engineer that they hired out of, or not out of, but had hired, and she has work experience with Toyota, like literally working in a Toyota factory. And so people like that who come with some experience or come with some knowledge, they often sort of start asking questions. Hey, we should do this. Why don't we do that? So the leadership team sometimes gets these pointers or gets these ideas from good people, but they really don't know what's involved. They don't know how to set it up for success. They tell that employee or others to, yeah, run with that. Let's see where it goes. So there's really there's no connection to the strategic plan, the why are we, going back to the question, why are we doing this? Doing it out of the goodness of our hearts is very noble, but doing it for a reason, to get people excited about it, to motivated about it, is much more important than just being a noble cause.
Right.
And so that's one way that that leaders, but another way that leaders get companies in trouble is when they are, they are in a position where they're starting to feel some pressure, whether it be external pressure, internal pressure, and they're looking for anything that might help.
Right. Plug the hole.
So they have a why, they have a reason why, but they don't really connect it to, what needs to happen or what they as leaders need to do to get people excited about it and working on it and embracing it. And so in those cases, it's really, those ones are actually quite disheartening in some ways, because the leaders, they have their reason for doing it, but they don't understand that they might be the problem. They might need to change. They might need to find some answers. So we sort of look at the world through our a model of culture that we use. It's got 5 blocks basically, and the far end, that is the destination of a culture, is this idea of a vision, being clear on where it is we're going and why we're going there. And I'm not talking about having a clear vision statement. I'm just saying, what is the vision? So when somebody comes to me and says, why are we doing this? I have a very clear and distinct, succinct answer that says, here's where we're going, here's why we're doing it. It might be a 6-month or 24-month, it's not a lifelong vision, but it's connected to reaching whatever that broadly written vision might be on their website or posters in the lobby. And then so that's at the very end, the 5th block, if you will, and that's the starting point. Much like Stephen Covey in his book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, it relates to habit number 2. Habit number 2 is start with the end in mind. So having a picture of what we want it to look like. It's not so clear that an accountant would get excited about 4 decimal places of accuracy. It's more like, I see a future where this is happening, these things are going on, we're able to solve problems to root cause, and most of them never come back again because we got it this time. It's just sort of putting words into people's minds, planting seeds, I like to call it. And every day we have to put a little water and sunshine on it. So it's not a one and done. You don't just say, here's where we're going, good luck, folks, and never talk about it again. It's literally a daily conversation many times over with many people. Then we sort of go back to the beginning of this culture, which is, do we have a good set of values internally that we use? So if a company has a declared set of values, that's perfect. We can start with that, use that. If the company doesn't, you don't have to stop everything and go off to a retreat somewhere and create a set of values. You just have to sort of look at what do we value as an organization? Teamwork, collaboration, honesty, integrity, whatever words come to mind. Just look at the marketing material on websites. That's what I do. And so if you go to a company's website and they don't have a clear tab called vision or values, where they've spelled it all out, I just read through the story. read through the about. Who are we? What do we do? And I pick words out of there, and I go to the client and I start using those words in my language, because I want it to feel like I'm part of the company, the client, and I test these words with the leaders. I say, I read some great words on your website. Do you know what I might be referring to? And that sort of puts them on the spot.
And
but those are the sort of the bookends. Those are the bookends to our culture model. And then the middle parts are what we would focus more on in the lean implementation. So the 3 blocks in the middle are the roles, the structure, how we want to align people. Instead of the old traditional org chart with multiple layers, we might want to have value stream managers, very flat, horizontal pieces through the organization. Then there's the middle piece, which is what are the methods we're going to use, and that's where the foundational pieces and the primary tools of lean come in. And then there's the feedback loop. So we're on our way to this vision. We've got values, we've got roles, we've got methods, and now we need to know if our methods are working. So how are we going to measure success? And sometimes we have to revamp the measurements. So that would be another area where companies struggle, is their current measurements fail to look to newer methods to accomplishing greatness. Most of the KPIs or measurements, key performance indicators or measurements, are based on old school accounting, batch manufacturing methodologies. And if you're trying to move to creating one-piece flow and reducing inventory and working on velocity of getting an order in, getting an order out, and getting paid in the shortest possible time frame, the old accounting methods and KPIs just don't cut it. In fact, if you're doing the right things in lean, those old measurements many times make your business look worse on paper. But in actual fact, you'll be, you're ramping up the velocity of cash and cash flow. But if your measurements aren't focused on those things, they're focused on standard cost of, this pen versus this iPhone versus this coffee mug, then you're buried in the weeds, and every change you make to creating flow makes it look like your part is more expensive with standard cost accounting. So those are, leadership and how we measure success are a couple of biggies. And I think most people would agree. There's all kinds of reasons, though, that lean falters a little bit. Another big one more, is that there's this misunderstanding or myth that you need to become a master of lean before you can implement it.
Okay.
And this is where, I like to focus our organization on teaching companies how to do what we do, or how to do what we've done for 30 years in manufacturing. And that is, you don't have to know the answers, but you do have to know the questions to ask. So one of the things, and I think I mentioned it to you, and hopefully you can add it to maybe the show notes and things on the podcast. But this book, the Lean Turnaround Action Guide, specifically the Action Guide by Art Byrne, is one that has become my favorite read since it came out. And in fact, the Action Guide, the original Action Guide, came out first. People gave Art some feedback saying, "Hey, Art, this is great. Love the book, but how do you do it?" So this is the how-to, and it actually, I can't take credit for the lean fundamentals the way I spelled them out to you, or the primary tools. They are in that book. They are ones that I believed in for so long that, by the time I read this book, I thought, geez, Art, you beat me to it. I wish I had,
wish I'd have written this.
I'm just not a book writer. But everything that Art put in this book are things we believed in for so long. I'm just glad to be able to say to leaders when we start working with them, hey, we're not going to start yet. I want your whole leadership team to get a copy of this book, and we're going to use it. We're going to follow it. We're going to have you practice while we go through this. And you don't have to be, you don't have to go to classes and get a certification or some colored belt like in Six Sigma. You just need to have an inquisitive mind, learn, use data to make decisions, and practice, learn from it along the way.
I have two questions. One, let me start over. It seems to me there's this guide, right? This amazing action guide. So any manufacturer could buy this and they could pour through it and they could follow the steps and they could do this themselves.
Absolutely.
I feel like most of us won't do that. So that's the benefit of hiring a company like yours, because you can guide them through it. You can lead them. You're the facilitator. Do you find that that's the case? Is that, like with my company, we have all kinds of guides, right? Social media, marketing, content, strategy. They're right there. You can follow them, but it's having that guide, that experienced person to actually pull you through it. And I think that's the real benefit, right, of working with someone like you.
Absolutely. Well, I hope that's the benefit.
That's the goal.
But that is our goal. The information about Lean, the Toyota production system, there's no intellectual property here. It's all public domain stuff. And so everything that I know, everything my team knows, client, it's all available to everybody, which is part of the problem. It's just so overwhelming. Just Google lean manufacturing and see what happens. And even if you ask, Chat GPT to boil it down for you, you're getting a consolidated version of everything it finds into, whatever most popular answers there are. But I hope that's the value we provide. The feedback that we get from our clients is when they start working with us, we start working for them. Their feedback is often, I really like your approach. You're not just giving us answers, you're helping us work through the problems so that we learn how to solve them. And so, our engagements with clients, if it's not just, teach us how to do this and move on, it's more of an engagement, a transformation, a lean turnaround, if you will, that it, depending on the size of the company, it might be a 6 month to 2 year engagement with periodic, time on site, and then time for them to work and practice. And, then we come back and facilitate some more change, and they work at it and practice. In those types of engagements, there is a lot more sticky success, where the company is learning how to stand on their own and continuously improve. Just reminds me of a client from a few years ago, 2021 and 2022, coming out of COVID. We were working with them. They had some real challenges. Lead times had stretched beyond a year, believe it or not, in their market. Some due to supply chain, some due to capacity. Their customers were just, their customers were now back in full production. And this company produces, call it a wear part for machines, meaning they wear out regularly and they keep coming back for them, like razor blades and Gillette, but industrial stuff. And, we were with them for about a year and a half in total. And, I haven't been on site since February 2023 with them, but check in once in a while with the engineering manager, who says things are going great. We're still doing, improvements, and the team of employees are really embracing lean thinking, which is, ultimately the goal. Leaders need to be the leaders, but lean comes from, shop floor manufacturing, employee implementation. You can't implement lean from the top or the middle and say, here, I've fixed your process.
Right.
Now you should be good.
It becomes a mindset and a culture.
Absolutely. So in the book and the way we put it, Art says, lean is the strategy. You have strategic goals and strategic objectives, but lean is the strategy. So when we think about the fundamentals, the idea of working to tact time, that is, know how fast your processes need to go. So it's really just a mathematical calculation. There's some things to think about depending on your industry and how variable your orders coming in are, and what type of products. Are you a discrete manufacturer making millions of pens, or are you a custom, or job shop making a wide variety of things? There are things to consider, but it's answering that question. How fast do we need to go? Because the old school idea, those old accounting methods and measurements are all about, well, as fast as you can, gosh darn it.
Right.
But if you go as fast as you can, and every person and every process is trying to go as fast as they can, but they aren't well sequenced, they aren't, the same cycle times in processes, you just create a whole bunch of chaos and require more complicated systems, ERP systems, to try and keep track of everything. So, as a strategy, we need to be thinking about who's our customer, who are our customers, and how often do we need to have something ready for them? What's the beat of customer demand? That's what tact time calculates, and it's just a calculation. The next foundational piece is, how do we take that knowledge and try to align our processes into as close to one-piece flow as we can? So, and I know there's all kinds of pushback. We've run into it all in our careers, but the strategy starts with, how can we get to one-piece flow? And if we can't today, what are the reasons we can't? And those things need some PDCA done to them, need some problem solving.
That makes sense.
We need to apply our problem-solving knowledge to the things that are in our way of these strategic visions, one of which is one-piece flow. So even if you forget about the one piece for a moment, because that's usually the sticking point, but how do we get things to flow in our business so that the work, whether it be administrative or it be widgets in manufacturing, how do we get the work to not have to stop anywhere? It just goes from one process to the next process to the next process, getting an order in, an order out, and getting paid in the shortest possible time frame. And so that second foundational piece is one-piece flow. And then the next one is standard work. Do we have standardized work in such a way that it doesn't matter who's on the job today, who's on what machine, that the output will come with the same speed and the same quality no matter what shift it is, what employees here, and so on. And again, there's lots of pushback on these things that are hard for some people's minds to get their head around. But from a strategic foundational piece to what lean is all about is literally that. I mean, if you were a business, well, you are a business owner, but as a business owner, do you not want your customers, whether they call and talk to you or call and talk to one of your other team members, that they're getting the same kind of response to their questions? They're getting the same sense of urgency. They're getting the same quality of work. we would expect that as business owners, and as business owners, it's up to us to at least begin the creation of those things. If we don't have others who do it, or a big enough team that we can assign it to other people, it has to come from us, that we do things in such a way that we can write them down, we can teach others exactly how to do it step by step, and take some of the nuance out of, there will always be personality, there will always be, human connection, relationships, but in terms of process, it really should be, it really shouldn't matter who a customer ends up talking to, or they should feel like they're dealing with the same company. And then the fourth foundational piece is developing pull systems. So this idea of, instead of push, processes happen when there's a pull. So it stems back to the idea of tact time. How often do we need one to meet our customer demand? If we achieve one piece flow, then our pull systems don't have to be complicated. All we have to keep in mind is that the upstream process doesn't need to do anything until the downstream process has a need. So the downstream process is the one that says, I need one, send one down. The upstream process sends one, and now they can work on the next one upstream. But a push system starts at the beginning. We give that operation or that employee a work order or a schedule and say, you just start and work as fast as you can, because all those people downstream of you are waiting for this stuff. And a push system, to anyone who's worked in a push system, especially in a factory, again, I use silly terminology because it helps get smiles and laughs in a room full of people who aren't sure whether they're ready to learn some of these things. I say, in a push system, it feels like ready or not, here it comes, because that's essentially what's happening. I'm just trying to do my work here, and whether I'm ready for it or not, here comes another tidal wave on the fork truck of bins full of parts, and they're being dropped off beside me in my way now. And now I have to either move them myself or ask someone to come and move them so I can get at the stuff that I was working on and try to get my work done for the day. And so developing pull systems, there's ways to do that, but in essence, it's material doesn't move until there's a downstream demand for it. And that creates a pull system through the process from that customer demand. And we really only need, if we've got flow and a pull system, we really only need to schedule one operation, and we'll call that the pacemaker, the one process that needs to set the beat for everyone else. No one else has to work harder, faster, or slower than that pacemaker. Now, I'm sure that people listening, like when I'm speaking to them face to face, there's often, yeah, but, you don't understand, Chad, we're different. Well, if I had a nickel for every time I've heard that, I may have retired by now.
A gillionaire.
But everyone's business has some uniqueness to it. I will say that. But everyone's business will go through the same steps. May take longer in some cases. Others take shorter amounts of time. Some take more work. Some take less work and effort. But I do want to sort of kick over, if now is a good time, to the primary tools. So, the foundational pieces, some people think those are tools. Tact time, one piece flow, these are tools. Yes, you can learn about them. You can go to a course, but they aren't tools. Those are the, lean as the strategy in organizations. The tools, the primary tools are the ones that end up getting used mostly, especially in manufacturing. Those primary tools are setup time reduction, 5S, workplace organization everywhere, and related topic to that, visual control. And setup time reduction, most people would agree that, yes, we need to shorten the amount of time our machines are down due to setup. but how companies approach that is usually the wrong way. They usually approach it to, we need to reduce the number of setups, which if you do that, you set up the machine once because it takes, time. Let's say it takes an hour. And your standard cost accounting in the financial department says to make that economically viable, we've come up with an economic batch size of 7 hours. So for 1 hour setup, we run for 7 hours. There's our 8-hour shift. That's the most efficient. So the system gets set up to do that, meaning they're trying to limit the number of setups that happen.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to achieve one-piece flow and or smaller amounts of inventory in a pull system, we actually need more setups. We have to do setups more frequently. And that just goes against everything that people in general in management, middle management, and upper management roles have learned in their careers.
Right.
But it is a principle, a primary tool to implementing lean. So we need to do more setups. And so the idea in lean is to think about, can we make any part any day or every part every day? So again, this would blow some people. If all we make is one part, it's not that difficult. If we make 5 parts, not that difficult to think about. But what if we have 1,000 different parts? We can't possibly make every part every day. And I agree with that. You're not going to flip the switch overnight. But the idea that how many days, if you only run 1 part per day, I set up for 1 hour, run for 7 hours, and that's how I get through all of my customer SKUs, stock keeping units. How many days would it take? Which means how many days of inventory of each part do I need to hang on to before I get back to running that part again? And that's, people recognize then, well, yeah, I've got a warehouse full of things because we run the way we do. If I could do a setup in 10 minutes, well, now I can do 6 setups in a day,
right,
and be down for no longer than I was before. But now I can run 6 different parts instead of just one in my remaining 7 hours of production. So setup time reduction is literally that. How can I get the machine to be down for less time so I can do more of those things and get more variety of parts more frequently through my downstream processes? It's about velocity. It's not about, economic batch sizes so much. Although if I compare the before and after economic batch size calculations, they're the same. I'm down for an hour and I run for 7. What did I get out of it though? That's the question. And then 5S, 5S has become, everybody knows about 5S. It's very rare that I bump into somebody who hasn't heard of 5S or know what it's about. It's a workplace organization process. It is not, a checkbox. We sorted out the junk and clutter out of the storeroom today, and we put things neatly back, and then, we leave it there until it gets messy again. If we do 5S well, it doesn't get messy again. And if it does, we ask why, and we apply PDCA, problem-solving thinking, to where is the mess coming from, and how do we solve for that so that we meet the sort of the criteria of the 5 S's, which are sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. There are other definitions to the 5 S's. Those are the most widely embraced definitions. And then a related topic to 5S as a primary tool is visual control. And this one is so important to employee engagement and creating a culture of continuous improvement. And that is that the information that we all need and we all share is completely transparent. It's in front of all of our eyes. It's not just about the measurements and metrics. It's also about the 5S. Here's my process, and I have an 8-step visual guide on how to keep the area neat and tidy. Or I've got procedures that come up on a screen in front of me as I'm assembling a product. It's visually controlled. I don't have to search for information. And the other beauty is that it's there for all to see. The coworker sitting beside me can see whether or not I'm following the procedure properly. So everybody's eyes are on the process because it's just so darn obvious. And we can tell whether we're ahead or behind at a glance within seconds. It's just what's happening here. Is it confirmed by my visual, cues? If we're good, it's 2 thumbs up. What's happening matches what's supposed to be happening. We're good. It's when one of those things or both of those things are out of sync that it sticks out like a sore thumb, and we are now engaged in PDCA problem solving. How do we fix this? So there are other tools, of course, within the toolbox of Lean, but again, we're about getting some practical tools in place to start building the culture, so that companies can then, as they get more challenging problems and issues pop up, there may be more applicable tools at that time. But this view will get most companies, if not off the ground, 80% of to where they want to be in the next 5 years easily.
Well, and sadly we have to wrap, and I would just ask one last quick question. Let's say I'm a really small manufacturer, like if I have 5 employees, is this something that I can pursue versus I have 50 or 150?
Right. So the answer is absolutely. The challenge for the really small company, the company of 5, is that most of the leadership around this topic will have to come from you or the leader of that 5 people. Or if they've got, a very strong right-hand person that, if I use just general terminology, CEO and COO, if you got a strong COO type person, maybe you can give them a majority of the responsibility, but you still have to be fully engaged on board and supportive of all the activity going on. You can't just give it lip service and not practice it yourself. That's a sure way to have it fall flat on its face.
Right. That's that whole, as a parent, do as I say, not as I do. And this is
exactly.
Yeah.
In a company of 50 and beyond, you can hide from that a little bit, but understand as a leader, employees their eyes are on you. If you show up on the shop floor, their eyes are on you, seeing if you're following what they're supposed to be following too. And if it doesn't look like you're in alignment with what they've been asked to do, then they don't feel like the values of the company are being lived up to. Going back to that culture model. So, but you've got more resources to help implement things. You can delegate some of the facilitation, the teaching, you work with Chad, have him teach you, and then you come teach me kind of thing. In a small company of 5 or 10, it can be more challenging. It can also be very challenging for a company of 5 or 10 to afford a coach, a facilitator. And so, thankfully there has been, I hope there continues to be some good funding available for manufacturers. We're here in Canada, and specifically in Ontario, where there has been some really good programs over the last few years. I hope that they continue. However, I do get a little upset when companies become reliant on that. That's the reason they do something is because there's money, versus they actually see the need and can see it make their business better.
Right. Make the investment themselves. Well, and just a quick last question, because we love to pay it forward, as I know you do as well. is there any advice you would give someone wanting to get into manufacturing today?
Um, yeah, there's lots of things I'd like to say. Um, you know, it is difficult to get people excited about manufacturing because it's not really talked about in school anymore. You know, high schools around here have been tearing out, technical machine shops and sort of the technical programs in favor of, math and sciences, which isn't in itself bad, but it gives no insight into, people working with their hands and making stuff and creating value added work, other than, maybe art class in that way. So I have heard of some high schools bringing that back and bringing more technical training back into the classroom. I'm glad to hear that and hope it continues. But I'm not answering your question yet. So what I often tell relatively new employees that I engage with, it's rare that I get a chance to talk to, say, high school students or bump into someone and try to convince them to work in manufacturing. But I do get to meet a lot of brand new employees within manufacturers. So I kind of, if they've been there less than a year, they're still new at it, in my view. So what I tell them is, find ways to really, make work easier. So I know that they learn to do their job. They maybe have gotten a manufacturing job because it pays decently. The hours work for them. There aren't that many people who are compelled to say, I want to work in manufacturing and go out seek a manufacturing job. If I have opportunities to go talk to high school students, I absolutely would. But for those who are in manufacturing, and supervisors and managers listening here can take this advice as well, is one of my favorite companies that I follow, the owner of that company says, I don't hire employees to make our products, even though that's why they exist. Customers want their products. He's got a different way of thinking about it. He says, I hire people to help make our business better every day. And our products just happen to, help pay the bills.
Right.
So that the products are sort of an outcome of people coming to work, brain engaged, trying to find a way to make it this much better today than it was yesterday, and do that every single day that they're in. Just think about how can you improve this even more. And so, that is one thing I do talk to relatively new employees about regularly, because what I see happening, and it happens in every manufacturing plant, is that the old guard, we'll say the more senior people, often, especially if they are more negative and cynical, they will grab these new employees and tell them how the world is. And that new employee will get that negative and cynical view unless there's something different presented to them. And so lean is actually one of those cultural things that we can embrace. We can get the younger, the less experienced manufacturers excited about lean, participating in lean, more so than some of the older employees. What often happens with our engagements is we're working with the younger employees who seem more enthusiastic to volunteer and join up, which is another characteristic. I say, try to learn as much as you can about your company, why they do what they do, how they make money, what your customers want, what customers love about you and your company, because those are things you can incorporate into those improvements every day. But when we convert a lot of the processes where these younger, newer employees are participating, the older, more senior employees often get drawn in because they see, more of the attention, they see more of the benefits, benefiting the younger employees, and wonder, well, why don't we get any help? And why didn't we do this 20 years ago? The short answer is, well, we didn't know this 20 years ago. Right. We're doing it now. Would you like to participate? And sort of draw them into it. And that's kind of speaks to going back to your question about why do companies fail or struggle, is they often think that they have to, broad brush every employee with all the training, and that they'll all just get it, and they'll all, conform and participate. And that's not really how it works. You've got to get some activity going, draw some excitement around it, get some real wins, some real practice under the belt. And it's remarkable how many people will be drawn to success.
Oh, I love that. Well, I cannot thank you enough for sharing all of your wisdom and experience with us, and really just for breaking all of this down and helping us all learn how to create a better flow. And so thank you so much for sharing some time and wisdom with our manufacturers.
Well, thank you for that. And I had some fun. I hope that our listeners do get something out of it. And again, don't try to write things down while you're driving.
Exactly.
Re-listen to it, maybe in a quiet time in your office. But thanks for having me. It's been fun, and I hope it's been insightful.
Well, absolutely was. And for you listening, if you're not already following Chad on LinkedIn, I encourage you to do so. And we just want to say to everybody listening, a huge thank you. We know you have a multitude of ways that you can spend your time. And the fact that you chose to spend a little time with us today, investing some time in yourself and your business, we want to say thank you. That means a lot. And that's why we do this. We do this for you. So keep doing what you're doing. If nobody tells you this week, it really does matter. And manufacturing is very exciting. You're in a really cool industry, and the world needs what you do. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Allison.
If you're not already, subscribe to the Manufacturing Masters podcast on Apple Music or Spotify. And for a deeper dive, head on over to manufacturing-masters.com. It's everything they never taught you in school.